You need to become your own walking prophecy. And what that means is that you got to start moving and talking like you are, dog. You see, you are your own proof of concept. You have your specific genetics, your specific environment, your specific experiences and social conditioning. And what this has done is given you a special toolbox that's unique only to you. There's nobody that's had an exact life exactly the same as yours. There's no one that has the exact genetics just like you. No one that has the exact experiences just like you. Similar, maybe very similar, but never exactly. And so it's easy for us to kind of see, especially negative situations, environments, maybe poor genetics, see all those things like they are a hindrance or an obstacle. You get me? But if you can kind of switch around and look at these things as something that can aid you in finding or creating whatever it is you seek to create, whether it's yourself or achieve a goal, whatever, you find that you actually have a God ordained specific toolbox that only you have and only you know how to work. Only you know how to survive certain environments. Only you know how to use your genetics in whatever way that you do. I think if we look at an example, Cristiano Ronaldo doesn't actually have the perfect running form. He never did. Never did have the perfect running form. Eyes very low, eyes, hands, arms very low. But that shit became iconic. People copied that run, bro. But if you go to an athletic coach and you show them that, you'll say, well, you have to put your hands a bit higher, right? There's a certain stride you have to take. But he made that iconic. That was his run, right? And so it's the same with you in whatever things that make you unique or kind of stand out or, you know, not really fit in. You can easily switch that shit around to become a toolbox for you to become your own proof of concept. Whatever you imagining, whatever you want to create. Some people call it manifestation. Um, there's a bunch of words for it, but all that matters is that you have the ability to create using these things. And so what you end up seeing is that certain situations, maybe you have a neighbor that doesn't fuck with you, or you have a toxic coworker, or you come from a certain type of environment, or you're born with, I don't know, whatever genetics that you're born with. You find that each of these things can give you a lesson. They can teach you how to maneuver or develop a certain skill that you might otherwise have never developed if that shit never happened, right? If you'd never been in that environment, if you'd never met that person, if you'd never come across that situation, you might never have developed the skills that that situation taught you, whether it was patience, learning how to communicate, I don't know, learning how to work in a group, learning how to work by yourself, learning how to stand by yourself, learning how to trust yourself, or learning how to trust in your own vision. All these things that we usually take for granted as, these, I don't know, terrible kind of things can then switch around, but only if you choose to let them, kind of work for you. And eventually, what ends up happening is that you can find a way to break out of your own personal matrix, right? Your own set of thoughts, beliefs, social conditioning that's made you who you are up until this point. You can finally find a way to break out of that. You can finally find a way to rearrange it, basically, simply because you've taken every single thing that was maybe meant to break you, harm you, slow you down, and you found a way to flip that shit on its head and use that to build you. Use that to build whatever it is you're trying to build, whatever it is you're imagining, right? Whatever it is you believe you could be, or whatever it is you believe you could create. Uh, so I guess in the spiritual community, some guys call it alchemy, right? Alchemizing things. Some people call it transmuting. There's a whole bunch of things for just turning things into something else that can actually be used to aid you and better you. But that is kind of the crux of it, is it all, I guess, starts with that first thing, that you have to be the walking prophecy for that stuff. You have to first actually see these things and kind of speak it and be like, okay, well, this is a goal, or this is something I want to achieve, or this is an objective, and then just kind of start moving. And at first, you're gonna suck. You're gonna embarrass yourself. You're gonna fuck up a lot of times. You're going to go through the fire, right? As you say, baptized in fire. You're gonna get baptized in fire. You're gonna fall flat on your face. I've fallen flat on my face more times than I can count at this point, right? But each time you get up, you've learned something new. Each time you get up, you've developed a new skill. Each time you get up, there's something inside of you that you've discovered that you wouldn't have otherwise discovered. And nice thing about this, it's all in your DNA. Right? It's encoded in your DNA. Human beings, we adapt. That is how we've gotten to this point in our lives, is by being able to adapt to circumstances, situation, being able to learn. And so in the beginning, you're gonna suck. You're gonna try different things. You're gonna fail at a lot of different things. But then you're going to rep, right? Not rep, but you're going to go through the reps, right? If you're going to the gym, you're gonna go through, different reps of a certain motion until you get good at it. You're going to train, right? Maybe you want to be a football player, a rugby player, whatever you want to do. You're gonna train, right? So every single training session on that pitch, every single rep in the gym, every piece of art that you create if you're an artist, every single silent battle that you have to go through by yourself without no one to really come around and hold your hand for it. All these things are going to eventually start fulfilling the prophecy for you, right? So what was just imagination can begin to manifest in reality, not because of, I don't know, some massive external force, uh, but simply because you decided one day to plant that seed and go through the process. And that's probably the most important thing, is that process. You might not hit the mark exactly, but you'll get pretty damn close if you just try, if you just attempt, and just keep attempting until you finally hit the mark. That's kind of how this entire thing works. And that's why you have to start becoming your own walking prophecy. Because suddenly one day you wake up, right? You've been doing the same things or similar thing day in and day out, whether it's external or internal work. You've been doing this thing, right? And one day you wake up, one day you look in the mirror, and the prophecy has been fulfilled. But not because it was something written in some ancient text, but simply because you decided a long time ago to plant that seed and just start taking action. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes the difference between, if we look at something like soccer, football, is the difference between some players is simply that. It's not the fact that one player is leagues above the other, right? If you play football, some players you tell from a distance, but I, yes, there's something here, bro. There's just an aura there. And it's just because that player just completely believes in himself. They don't care who you are. They don't care what the opposition looks like. They don't care who the opposition is. They don't care who their teammates are, to a certain extent, right? Not to say they don't care about their teammates, but they're not necessarily looking at their teammates in a manner like, I could never be him. No. They're focused on their own game. They're focused on their own skills, their own abilities. And so what that translates into is this certain type of inner knowing. You understand? Certain type of understanding that just comes off a certain type of way, right? If you've played football, you know what I'm talking about. It's not necessarily that this player is leagues above anybody, right? They just know themselves to a certain extent that it just comes off a certain type of way. And that's kind of how self-fulfilling prophecy kind of works, is that one day you just decide and then you just start moving towards something. Now, that's the big, that's the big goal. That is the goal itself. As you will go through this process, will usually never be the end result. It's not usually that outcome at the end that really matters, right? One thing this year has taught me is that it's that process that you go through that begins molding you in certain ways, exposing yourself to certain parts of you that you didn't even know existed, or, were possible for you. That's what matters. And that's what molds that prophecy, right? That's what brings it to fruition, is that process, that fire that you gotta go through. The heartbreaks, the failures, the losses, yeah, all the mess, all the junk, all the garbage, all the things that you would rather not go through, all the things that are kind of uncomfortable, not kind of, that are uncomfortable, right? It is an uncomfortable process. That is the process of becoming. That is the process of the self-fulfilling prophecy, is that you have to say it and risk coming off arrogant and cocky, all sorts of things, risk coming off like you have a big mouth, but then start moving towards it. And at the end of it, the outcome won't even matter. It will be the person that you became as you moved through that process that will matter more than the prophecy itself.